Witness the incredible bond between a canine officer and his four-legged partner as they embark on a mission to rescue dogs from a secret adoption ring. This heartwarming tale proves that even the smallest paw print can leave a lasting impact. The sun was warm on Officer Jones's neck. A gentle breeze rustled the leaves of the oak trees. The air was filled with happy sounds. Dogs barked. People laughed. Squeaky toys squeaked. This was the Oakwood Community Dog Park. For Officer Jones and his partner, Max, it was their favorite place. Max was a German Shepherd. He was big and strong, with a coat of black and tan. His eyes were sharp and intelligent. Most days, he wore a special vest. It said Police K9 in bold white letters. But not here. Here, at the park, he was just Max. Officer Jones unclipped the vest. He folded it neatly and placed it on the bench. "Okay, buddy," he said, his voice soft. "You're off duty. Go play." Max gave a happy bark. His tail wagged so hard his whole body wiggled. He was a professional, a dedicated canine officer. But he was also a dog, and he loved to play. He nudged Jones's hand with his wet nose one last time. It was a silent promise. "I'll be close. I'm always watching." Then he bounded off into the sea of wagging tails and floppy ears. Jones watched him go, a smile on his face. He trusted Max completely. They had been partners for 5 years. They had faced dangerous situations together. They had found missing people. They had tracked down criminals. Their bond was forged in trust and respect. Jones knew every twitch of Max's ears, every low growl, every happy sigh. Max was a marvel. His greatest tool was his nose. It was a powerful instrument, able to pick up scents no human could ever detect. Jones had once seen him track a lost child's trail through a crowded city street 2 hours after she had vanished. He could smell fear, adrenaline, and deceit. His dedication was absolute. When a vest was on, he was all business. His focus was unbreakable. But here, with the vest off, he allowed himself to relax. He chased a bright red ball thrown for a golden retriever. He wrestled playfully with a goofy boxer. He sniffed greetings with a tiny poodle who yapped bravely at his large paws. Jones settled on the bench, chatting with the other dog owners. They talked about the weather, about new types of dog food, about the funny things their pets did. It was normal. It was peaceful. It was a perfect afternoon. Jones felt the tension of his job melt away under the warm sun. This was their routine, a way to decompress, a way to remember that the world wasn't all crime scenes and flashing lights. There was good in it too. You could see it here, in the simple joy of a dog chasing a ball. Max continued his rounds. His nose twitched constantly, reading the stories in the air. He smelled the faint trace of a rabbit that had hopped through the park that morning. He smelled the delicious scent of a hot dog from a vendor 2 blocks away. He smelled the rain that was forecast for later that evening. His brain sorted through the thousands of scents, categorizing them, dismissing them. Rabbit, old news. Hot dog, not for him. Rain, good to know. He was trotting near the back fence when a new scent hit him. It was faint, but it was wrong. It was a smell of stale fear. Not the playful, excited fear of a chase, but something deeper, something sad. It clung to a patch of overgrown grass near a forgotten corner of the park. His playful mood vanished. His ears shot up. His tail stopped wagging and lowered slightly. This was not a park smell. This was a work smell. Officer Jones noticed the change immediately. One moment, Max was chasing a frisbee with a happy, open-mouthed grin. The next, he was standing perfectly still, a statue of focused intensity. His body was rigid. His gaze was locked on the far fence line. Jones stood up. "Max," he called. The dog didn't respond. That was the first alarm bell. Max always responded. Jones started walking toward him. "What is it, boy? What did you find?" Other dog owners paused their conversations, watching. They knew Max was a police dog. They saw the sudden shift from playful pet to serious professional. The happy chatter of the park quieted slightly. As Jones got closer, Max let out a low, soft whine. It was a sound of concern. He pawed at the ground near the fence. There, half buried in the dirt and tangled weeds, was a dog toy. It was a stuffed squirrel, faded and grimy. It looked like it had been there for weeks, chewed and forgotten. But Max was obsessed with it. He wasn't trying to play with it. He was nudging it, sniffing intensely, and whining again. "What's the matter with an old toy?" a man with a beagle asked. Jones knelt beside Max. "He doesn't act like this for no reason," he said, his voice low. He trusted his partner's instincts above all else. He gently took the squirrel from the ground. It was damp and smelled of mud. He was about to toss it aside, but Max whined again, more insistently this time. He nudged Jones's hand, then nudged the toy. Jones looked closer. The squirrel was old, but one of the seams along its back looked different. The thread was newer, cleaner. It wasn't a factory seam. It had been stitched by hand. His heart began to beat a little faster. He used his thumbnail to carefully pick at the stitches. The thread came loose easily. Inside the toy stuffing, his fingers felt something small and hard. It was a tiny plastic tube, the kind that might hold a slip of paper. He pulled it out. His hands were steady, his police training kicking in. He unscrewed the small cap. Tightly rolled inside was a small piece of paper. He carefully unrolled it. The writing was messy, hurried. It looked like it was written by a shaky hand. It said, "They take the sad ones. Willow Creek Bridge. Midnight. Please help us." Jones read it twice. Chills ran down his spine, despite the warm sun. The sad ones. What did that mean? Willow Creek Bridge was an old, little-used bridge on the outskirts of town. Midnight. This was a meeting. A plea for help. He stood up, the tiny piece of paper clutched in his hand. He looked at Max, who was now sitting patiently, watching his face. Jones placed a hand on his partner's head. "Good boy, Max," he whispered. "You did good. You did real good." The peaceful afternoon was over. The park was no longer a place of play. It was a crime scene, and Max had just handed him the first clue. Back at the precinct, the fluorescent lights hummed. The smell of stale coffee filled the air. Jones laid the grimy squirrel toy and the tiny note on his captain's desk. Captain Miller, a man with graying hair and a permanent frown of concentration, leaned forward. He read the note. "The sad ones," he said, his voice a low rumble. "What do you make of it, Jones?" "I think it means exactly what it says," Jones replied. "Someone is targeting specific dogs. The ones that look lonely, neglected, or shy. The ones an owner might not miss right away, or the ones that are easy to lure. They spend the next few hours digging. They checked missing pet reports from the last few months. There was a pattern. Several dogs had vanished from parks and neighborhoods around the city. The descriptions were all similar. Quiet dogs, rescue dogs still getting used to their new homes, dogs belonging to elderly owners. They were all sad ones. A tech analyst worked on the note itself. Under a special light, they found a faint imprint on the back. It was a partial phone number. It was enough. They traced the number to a woman named Clara Bell. Her social media profile was full of pictures of dogs. She presented herself as a passionate animal rescue volunteer. She frequently posted about finding forever homes for abandoned pets. But something was off. The adoption fees she mentioned in her posts were incredibly high, and the dogs she rescued were never registered with any official city shelters or legitimate rescue organizations. The pieces started to click into place. This wasn't a rescue operation. It was a clandestine dog adoption ring. "Here's how it works," Jones explained, pointing at a map on the wall. "They scout public places like the dog park. They identify vulnerable targets. Clara, with her friendly rescuer persona, probably approaches the owners, gets information, maybe even distracts them. And then what?" Captain Miller asked. "Then they snatch the dog," Jones continued. "They probably have a van nearby. They take the dogs, clean them up, maybe invent a fancy breed name for a mutt, and sell them online for thousands of dollars to unsuspecting families who think they're getting a rare or specially trained animal. They're profiting from theft and preying on people's love for animals. The motive was greed, masked by a facade of charity. The methods were cruel and calculated. They weren't just stealing pets, they were stealing family members. They were causing immense heartbreak, and the dogs themselves were being treated like merchandise, passed from one stranger to another, their sense of security shattered. Jones felt a hot anger burn his chest. He thought of Max. He thought of the joy Max brought him every single day. The idea of someone stealing that, of causing that kind of pain, was unbearable. "We need to catch them in the act," Captain Miller said. "Willow Creek Bridge, midnight. That's our chance. But we can't just roll in with sirens blazing. They'll scatter, and the dogs will be gone." Jones looked down at Max, who was lying at his feet, head on his paws, watching everything. An idea formed in his mind. It was risky. It was dangerous. But it was their best shot. "They're looking for sad ones," Jones said quietly. "So let's give them one." Captain Miller raised an eyebrow. "What are you suggesting, Jones?" "Max is the best actor I know," Jones said, a determined look on his face. "He can go undercover. He'll be our inside man." The next day, the sun was bright again at Oakwood Dog Park. But for Officer Jones, the world felt gray and tense. He sat on the same bench as before. But today, he wasn't relaxed. His heart pounded against his ribs. Beside him sat Max. But it wasn't the proud, happy Max of yesterday. Jones had spent the morning preparing his partner for his role. He had brushed Max's fur the wrong way, making it look slightly unkempt. He had swapped his sturdy leather collar for a thin, worn-out rope one. There was no canine vest. There was no joy in Max's posture. Jones had given him a quiet command before they left the car. "Stay down. Stay quiet." Max, the consummate professional, understood. He sat with his head lowered, his ears slightly back. He looked dejected. He looked lost. He looked like one of the sad ones. Tucked discreetly into the worn rope collar was a tiny device. It was a high-resolution camera and microphone, no bigger than a button. It transmitted a live feed to a van parked a block away, where Captain Miller and a small team were watching and listening. Jones pretended to be engrossed in his phone. He scrolled aimlessly, his thumb shaking slightly. He had to act distracted, like a careless owner. Every instinct screamed at him to watch Max, to protect him. But he had to trust his partner. He had to play his part. It didn't take long. A woman with a bright, fake smile approached him. She had blonde hair and wore a t-shirt with a paw print on it. It was Clarabelle. "Oh, what a beautiful dog," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. Jones looked up, pretending to be annoyed by the interruption. Thanks," he mumbled. "He looks a little down, though," Clara said, kneeling near Max. Max didn't move. He didn't even look at her. He just stared at the ground. "Has he been with you long?" "He's a rescue," Jones said, feeding her the story they had prepared. "Still getting used to things." The poor dear," she cooed. "Some of them have such a hard time. They carry their sadness with them." She was good. Her words were a mix of sympathy and expertise. An unsuspecting owner would trust her instantly. She reached in her pocket and pulled out a small, dried piece of meat. It had a strange, pungent smell. "Sometimes a special treat helps them open up," she said, holding it out to Max. This was a critical moment. Max had been trained to never accept food from strangers. Jones held his breath. For a second, Max didn't move. Then, slowly, as if he couldn't resist, he lifted his head and delicately took the treat from her hand. On the video feed, Captain Miller's team zoomed in. They noted the type of treat, another piece of evidence. Clara smiled, a triumphant glint in her eyes. "See, he just needs a little love." She stood up and looked at Jones. "You know, I work with a private group that specializes in dogs with trauma. We have trainers, a beautiful facility in the country. If you ever feel like he's too much to handle, we could give him a wonderful life." She was laying the groundwork, planting the seed. Jones just grunted in response, pretending to be uninterested. Clara gave him a business card. Then, with a final pat on Max's head, she walked away. She didn't go far. She sat on a bench across the park, watching them, waiting. Jones's job was to give her the opportunity. After a few minutes, he stood up. "Stay here, boy," he said loudly, and then walked toward the park's public restroom, leaving Max alone. It was the hardest thing he had ever done, walking away from his partner, leaving him vulnerable. He watched the live feed on his phone as he walked. He saw Clara get up. She looked around, making sure no one was paying attention. Then she walked back to Max. She knelt down and spoke to him in a low voice. She pulled out another treat. Then, she made a soft clicking sound with her tongue. Max, following his undercover training, stood up. He hesitated for a moment, then followed her. Clara led him quickly toward the back fence, to the same overgrown corner where he had found the toy. Hidden behind a thick bush was a gate. She unlatched it, led Max through, and closed it behind them. Max was in. The camera on his collar showed a narrow alleyway. At the end of the alley was a white, windowless van. The back doors were open. Clara led Max to the van and urged him to jump inside. The moment he was in, the world became dark and metallic. The doors slammed shut, plunging the camera into darkness. But the microphone was still live. Jones, Miller, and the team could hear everything. They heard the clank of a cage door. They heard Clara's voice, no longer sweet, but cold and businesslike. "That's another one. A purebred German Shepherd. Silas is going to love this. He'll fetch at least $5,000. Then they heard other sounds. The whimpering of other dogs. The scared panting. The rattle of cages as the van started to move. Inside the dark van, Max stood in his cage. His eyes adjusted quickly. He could see several other dogs in small, cramped cages. A scruffy terrier mix was trembling in the corner. A young beagle puppy was crying softly. They were all terrified. Max was calm. He was on a mission. He gently nudged his nose against the bars of the beagle's cage. The puppy stopped crying and looked at him with wide, fearful eyes. Max let out a very low, almost inaudible huff of air. It was a canine sign of reassurance. "It's okay. I'm here." He then went to work. His nose, his greatest asset, began to search. He smelled the lingering scent of dozens of other dogs. He smelled the chemical scent of cleaning supplies used to mask the evidence. And he smelled something else. Paper and ink. Underneath, a dirty blanket on the floor of the van, just outside his cage, was a clipboard. He couldn't reach it, but he could see it. He pressed his body against the cage door, angling the camera on his collar. He held the position for a full minute, making sure the team in the surveillance van got a clear shot. The camera captured it all. A ledger. On it were names of dogs, descriptions, prices, and the names of buyers. It was the smoking gun. It was all the proof they needed. Max had done his job. Now it was up to Jones to do his. The van's GPS tracker, hidden along with the camera, showed its location. It was heading toward Willow Creek Bridge. The trap was set. The white van rumbled over the old wooden planks of Willow Creek Bridge. It was a desolate spot, surrounded by dark woods and the sound of rushing water below. The van pulled to a stop just past the bridge, its headlights cutting through the midnight blackness. A man stepped out of the driver's side. He was tall and thin, with cold, calculating eyes. This was Silas, the leader of the ring. Clara got out of the passenger side. "Got a real prize today," she said, gesturing to the back of the van. "Perfect specimen." Suddenly, the world exploded with light and sound. Police cars, hidden in the woods, swarmed the area. Red and blue lights flashed, illuminating the scene in a chaotic dance. A loudspeaker boomed. "This is the police. Step away from the van with your hands in the air." Clara screamed. Silas cursed and made a move for the driver's door, but it was too late. Officers were on him in a second. He and Clara were cuffed and secured before they could process what was happening. Officer Jones was the first one to the back of the van. He threw the doors open. His flashlight beam cut through the darkness. The first thing he saw was Max, standing tall in his cage, his tail giving a single, triumphant wag. "Good boy." Jones breathed, his voice thick with relief. He quickly unlocked Max's cage. The big dog bounded out, nudging his head against Jones's chest. Then, Jones and the other officers turned their attention to the real victims. They gently opened the other cages. The dogs cringed at first, scared of the noise and the strange people. But the officers spoke in soft, calm voices. Jones knelt and opened the cage, holding the little beagle puppy. The puppy crawled into a ball, trembling. Jones didn't reach for it. He just sat there, speaking quietly. "It's okay. You're safe now. Everything is going to be okay." After a moment, the puppy lifted its head. It looked at Jones, then at Max, who stood watchfully beside his partner. The puppy crept forward and licked Jones's hand. It was a scene of quiet, powerful emotion. One by one, the rescue dogs were carried out of the van. They were given water and wrapped in warm blankets. The scruffy terrier, who had been shaking uncontrollably, licked the face of the female officer holding him. A timid spaniel, who had been silent the whole time, let out a soft, happy sigh. The evidence was overwhelming. The ledger Max had filmed, the marked treats, the testimony of the unsuspecting buyers, and the dogs themselves. Silas and Claire's operation was over. Justice would be served. But the mission wasn't truly complete until the dogs were safe. In the following days, the police worked with local animal shelters. The owners of the recently stolen dogs were contacted. There were tears of joy and emotional reunions. The dogs that had been stolen long ago, whose owners couldn't be found, were put up for responsible adoption. The story of their rescue had been on the news. The shelters were flooded with applications. Jones himself fostered the little beagle puppy until the perfect family was found. He watched as a young couple with a gentle daughter met the puppy for the first time. The little girl knelt, just as Jones had, and the puppy ran right into her arms. A new family was created. A broken trust was mended. A week later, Officer Jones and Max were back at the Oakwood Community Dog Park. The sun was warm. The dogs were happy. Max, his official canine vest on with pride, was getting a long, deserved ear scratch from Jones. A woman and her young son approached them. The boy looked at Max with wide, admiring eyes. "Is it the dog from the news?" the boy asked his mother. "The hero dog?" Jones smiled. "Yes, this is Max." The boy stepped forward, a little shyly. He reached out a small hand and gently patted Max's head. "Thank you for saving the other doggies," he said. Max leaned into the touch, his tail thumping a steady, happy rhythm against the bench. Jones looked out across the park. He saw dogs of all shapes and sizes, playing without a care in the world. He understood now more than ever the importance of that simple joy. He understood the profound bond between a person and their pet. It was a bond built on trust, love, and the silent promise to keep each other safe. And it was a bond worth fighting for. He looked at his partner, his friend, his hero. "Come on, buddy," Jones said, clipping on Max's leash. "Let's go home."